everyone, welcome back to Motion RC. I'm James and today we're talking about the new Skynetic Bison Super STOL aircraft. She's 1750 millimeters and today we're going to show you all the parts laid out on the table before you. As you can see, we're going to do a step-by-step assembly and then we're going to go over the specs and all the features once we have it all assembled here on the table. So this video is going to be rather long, so I definitely want you to check the description. We're going to have time codes because this whole video will be broken down in sections. So if you want to go to a certain part of the build or get the spec rundown, you can jump there now. But as you see, all the parts laid out before you. I did print the manual off the website. The link to the manual direct will also be in the description of this. And you know, the manual is only available online. You won't get one in the box, so I just printed it out here. But the reason we do that is because manuals can be updated, so it's much easier to just replace a file online than having to reprint a bunch of manuals. So always check the website and you'll get the latest manual update available to you. So again, now all the parts laid out on the box. You see the big box behind you. Again, it comes in, this will all be wrapped in foam as you'd expect any other aircraft package up. But taking a look, you got your big fuselage, and I love it, got nice size to it. Weight decals are already applied on here, and you got these big clear windows. You can see some of the footage. We put a GoPro inside on a pan and tilt, and it looks really nice, so great for FPV. You can see there's lights, the landing lights on there, and all your accessories. Now, one of the things about the canopy too is all this is structural. So this is what holds the wings on top, and you can see the quick connects too for your main wings, which is nice. Taking a look at just one of the wing panels, again, sticker's going to be already implied, and you can see one of the big features about the Bison is the available slats. So they're going to be controlled on the same servo that controls the flaps as well. And there's a whole system that we'll get to when you have to put these together to get that installed. But other than that, looking good. Again, quick connects on the side, and then you also have quick connect for the LED lights that go on the side as well. Then some of the other parts. Now, one of the reasons also, it's going to take you a little time to assemble this, you get inflatable tires, which is a great feature of the Bison because you can inflate them, deflate them depending on your surfaces, things like that. They just look really cool. And one thing you're going to have to do, though, is you're going to have to assemble these yourself. They come separate. It's easier to put in the box. You're going to need a little bit of glue. We'll show you how to do that when we get to that point as well. And then on this side of the table, this is where you see everything that comes in plastic. So you got your tail wheel that we have to install. You got your metal spinner for the front. Again, you have your wingtip lights that are easy to plug. Then you get all your control rods. You get a bunch of different bags of screws, about 6 different bags. And the manual tells you which screw is for which. Then you have the robust landing gear, all metal with the suspension on the struts. And then some other things, again, you get 2 propellers. Now, the smaller propeller is going to be for the 6S option. The larger propeller is for the 4S option. So that's why they include 2. So depending on your setup is the propeller you're going to use. Then you got all your carbon sparring and your wing struts. So there it is, guys, all laid out on the table. Some of the tools you're going to need: screwdrivers. You're going to want some CA glue a little bit. And then you're going to want some tire glue, which is the best thing to use to install the tires to the rims, the inflatables. And then also you're going to want to use a standard air pump needle. So like you would use on a basketball or a football or, you know, any sporting ball. That's how you're going to inflate your tires. So you definitely want to have one of those for when you're ready for that step. But here it is, guys, all laid out before you. So now let's just do a quick rundown of the specs and then we'll get started with the assembly. All right, guys, the Bison is a big bird. Her wingspan is 1750 millimeters or 68.8 inches. And she's about 1290 millimeters long or 50.7 inches. The Bison has 4 17-gram digital Metal Gear servos for both ailerons and both flaps, and then 2 25-gram digital Metal Gear servos for the elevator and the rudder. The ESC is an 80 amp with a 5 amp BEC, and the motor is a 5055 420 kV brushless outrunner motor. Again, the propeller 16x8 is for your 4S setup, and 15x8 is going to be for your 6S setup. The recommended battery on 6S is anywhere from 3,300 to 5,000, and the same is going to go for your 4S. The foam is EPO, and she has 6 included LED lights. 1 on the rudder, 3 on the fuselage, and then 1 on each wingtip. All right, so that'll do for the specs. Time to get started with a step-by-step assembly. So now, following the assembly manual that's provided on the website, step 1 is going to be just getting your linkages installed on your wings. So for your flaps, your slats, and your ailerons, that's where we're going to get started. So first things first, you want to grab the bag that has 2.0 by 10 on it. Those are going to be for your ball linkage joints. And then you also want to get the control rod bag. Now you'll see there's 4 control linkages. 2 of them are shorter than the other 2. The shorter 2 are for the flaps. The longer 2 are going to be for your ailerons, just for your reference. So I started with the flap control linkages. It says in the book that you're going to attach it to the inner hole of the servo. Now at this point, you could center your servo. What I did, I like to get them attached, but I don't screw everything down because when I get the model bound up later, that's when I'm going to set all my rates and play around with those things. So right now, I'm attaching everything, but I'm not tightening anything down. Now that little arm, you're going to see on the shorter bent part of that arm for the slats, it is threaded. And the little hole on the slat mechanism on the wing is threaded. So what you have to do is sort of spin it around a couple times till it catches, and then keep spinning around till it gets nice and taut. And then what I found best, loosen up the grub screw on the provided linkage on the arm of the flap servo already, loosen that grub screw. Then I took the screw out of the servo, lifted it up, and I was able to slide that right over. And again, once it's slid on, I reattached the screw for the servo arm, and then I left the grub screw open because, again, I'm going to set this up later when I get this thing bound up. And then lastly, on one wing, do the aileron linkage, and that goes to the outermost hole on the control arm of the aileron. So now as far as the book goes, that's steps 1, 2, and 3 is going to be having all the linkages installed on your wings. So once you're past that point, it's time to move on to what I'm calling step 2 for this video. So now step 2 is going to be installing your main undercarriage. So you want to get that out of the bag, and you see it all comes attached as one piece, at least your legs do. And now you're going to need 2 different types of screws for this entire section because we're going to be doing the main landing gear. We're going to be putting the arms to the fuselage as well, the suspension. First things first, we want to start with the main landing gear. You're going to see the 2 silver blocks, if you will, of metal. They fit into a pre-molded hole on the bottom of the fuselage. Once you got that set, we're going to use 4 of the 3x14s. So when you open the bag of 3x14s, you're going to see about 9 screws in there and about 5 bolts. So we're going to use 4 of those screws without the bolts because there's a threaded brass ring inside the fuselage that it's going to catch to. So you're going to put 4 across, and that's going to attach the main legs to the bottom of your fuselage. Now we're going to open up the bag of screws that read 2.6 by 12. We're going to use 4 of those. We're going to be attaching the suspension mounting plates that go on the fuselage, as you can see here. It's going to take 2 of those 2.6 by 12 screws on each side. So tighten those down. And now we're going to go back to that 3x14 with the nut this time, and that's going to attach the ball link to those mounts on the side of the fuselage. So screw those in place and you're good. And now we have to connect the suspension to the main landing gear on the bottom. So you want to again use 2 more of the 3x14s, 1 on each side. And when you connect those, that's going to give it the rigidity for the entire undercarriage. So again, on this process, we used 8 3x14 screws, and 4 of them had the nuts that are included in the bag. Then we used 4 2.6 by 12s for the mounts. So now the next step in the book is going to be to install your main wheels. But now if you're at this point in the build, you're going to realize that your wheels, again, are not glued together. So you could have done this before, you could do it after, however you want, but for the purpose of this video, we're going to show you here. So one thing you have to know about the inflatable tires, if you see, each side of the rim has a different diameter towards the wheel. So if you look at the rubber, you're going to see one hole is bigger than the other. That corresponds. If you try to do it the wrong way, one side is going to be way too tight, and then you won't be able to seal up the other side. So you just want to make sure, looking at the rubber, that you're using the outer, the hub is only going to fit one way in the rubber of the tire. So once you get that figured out, what I like to do is I dry fit it, make sure it all fits dry, And then I'm using this tire glue, but what I found best was a thin type of CA, and that's what this tire glue is. Because once you have it dry fit, you can pull up just one side at a time, drip some glue into the rim, and let it sort of work both ways, and then wait a couple seconds, wait a couple minutes for that to harden, then come back, pull it open a little bit more, put a little more on the other side, and again, you sort of work your way around this, and it's gonna take you a good maybe 20 minutes of just waiting for each time you glue to dry, because then you want to check it and inflate it, see if there's any air holes. You can hold it underwater. That's what some people do, you know, to check where air holes might be. It might take you a couple times to do this, but overall you'll get it in if you just, you know, take your time when doing this. So now again, if you have those all glued up already and they're already inflated, you could go ahead and install your tires. You're going to find the nuts for the tires are going to be in the bag with the landing gear. And they provide you 3 nuts, but you only need 2. What you're going to find in this build is you're going to have extra screws. They give you a lot of extras for every step, which is great. So don't be worried if at the end you're going to have screws left over. Okay, so now moving on to what is now step 4 is going to be installing your tail wheel and your rudder. So first things first, you're going to see that the rudder actually uses a slide-on pre-installed hinge. But you're also going to see that there's a wire coming out of the rudder. That's for the light in the back of the rudder. So there's a connection on the fuselage side. Make that connection first. And again, red to red, black to black as far as the wiring goes. Then once that's connected, you could push that wire back into the hole on the fuselage as best you can. And then you could slip the rudder on. Then you want to flip the aircraft over and you want to open up your tail wheel bag. Your tail wheel bag that has the tail wheel unit is going to have all the screws needed for the step. You're going to see it's going to have 3 screws in it. So first things first, using one of those screws with the plane now upside down, you want to screw in the rudder from the bottom. That's what's going to make sure the rudder doesn't fall off. You know, that's going to hold it there. Then you're going to put your tail wheel and you're going to mount it like this. And you're going to use the other 2 screws to lock that tail wheel down. And then there's provided 2 springs, and you're going to connect the springs to the tail wheel steering to the rudder with the rudder. So once you have all that done, you are now done with step 4. Now step 5 is going to be the horizontal stabilizer. Now for this one, you're also going to need the smallest carbon rod that comes with the 3 carbon rods. They're in their own little bag. So take those out. We're going to use a smaller one. Fit it onto whatever side you want to start with first. It's up to you. Slide it through the hole. And then when you slide the other side of the horizontal stab on, obviously make sure the back control surface gets connected. It wouldn't connect if it wasn't anyway, but just make sure that that slips in because again, it's one servo is going to drive that whole control surface. So that's how they attach. Once you slot those in really snug, you're going to come over to your screw baggies and you're looking for the 2.3 by 10 screws that you see here. And again, we're going to use 4 of them, 2 for each side of the horizontal stabilizer, and you can see the holes are on the top of the horizontal stabilizer to connect them down. Okay, with that complete, you have a virtually built up fuselage now, and now we can head over to these wing struts. So you're going to see the wing struts, they come taped together, but they're actually in 2 separate bags. And just be careful when you cut these open because there are 2 loose little baby screws that you're going to need in one of these bags. That's going to help you. So you can see that one of these sides of each strut are already complete and you just need to attach one side to the other one. So that's what you're going to use those little baby screws for. So do that for both sides. Now we want to get the hardware installed. So you're going to find a bag that's going to have 4 of your wing mounts. These are how the struts are going to attach to the wings because we're going to attach them there first. And what I like about this too is get the strut mounts attached to the struts first before you attach the mounts to the wing of the aircraft. It makes it much easier to screw it on at this portion. Now, what we're going to use are the 2.0 by 14 screws with the washers. That's what's going to attach the strut to the mount. So you're going to use 4 of those to attach. So now this is where it gets tricky too when you're when you screw those on, always do a dry fit with these mounts on the wing and the struts, because only one strut is going to fit one side of each wing. Remember, on the struts, the straighter, shorter length of strut is in the front of the aircraft going across the front towards the nose, and the longest part that goes almost at a 45-degree angle, if you will, that heads towards aft on the wing. But again, you're using the 2x14 machine screws and nuts to connect the struts to the mounts, and then you're going to use 8 of the 2.3x10-inch screws, and those ones are going to connect the mounts to the wing. So you're driving 2 in for each. So once you're done there, they're not really going anywhere. Okay, now the next step is going to be installing the wings onto the fuselage. So your main wing install. Now you're going to use those last 2 carbon rods that came in a bag. The shortest one is going to go towards the nose of the aircraft, the longest one towards the tail. So I fit those in first. Then again, what I like about these wings, they have the quick connect. So all you have to do is slide them over the spars, one on each side, and just press them together. They go in nice and snug. And then we're going to look for the bag that's marked 3x8. So the 3.0x8s, they give you 5 of these screws. You only need 4, so you have an extra one. Those are your main wing screws. So just drive all 4 of them into their corresponding holes. And then you want to flip the aircraft over. It might make it easier for you. You don't have to. But now you're going to attach the struts using the provided C-clip. So if you've ever played with an RC car, you'll recognize these C-clips. That's what's going to hold the strut to the fuselage. So just press those in, gives the wing the rigidity it needs, and lock those down. And then the last step, as far as assembly, goes for your prop and your peripherals. So I'm just going to show you quickly that these side wing fences, these pieces of carbon, you see they only fit one way. They are molded to fit perfectly. So I just use CA, put it all on the lower half of it, and then pressed it on, glued in pretty quick. And then you have your LEDs. So now your LEDs, you know, you can test them. You don't have to stick them on there now. Some guys like to use a little glue as an extra bonus, aside from just the 3M tape. It's up to you. But once you have it plugged in and bound, you'll know which color's which, because you want red on the right. You know, you want to make sure red and green are on their corresponding right sides. So you know, just check that out. But when you do install them, you can just peel the tape, stick them in. They'll be good to go. And then you have your prop. Depending on what you plan on flying it on, whether it's 4S or 6S, will determine which prop you use, but they both assemble the same way. As you can see here, it's your back plate, it's your prop, then it's your washer, your nut, then the top of the spinner, and one of the 2 screws they give you for this purpose. Obviously, you're going to machine tighten it down, but I'm going to end up taking the prop back off here to bind it up, because I never want to bind up an aircraft with a propeller on for no reason. Alright guys, so now at this stage in your assembly, now you just have to do your linkages and get all the connections on the slats going, and you'll be ready to rock and roll for your maiden. So now as far as the linkages, this is why in steps 1 and 2 I never tightened anything down fully, because I knew here once I have it plugged in, I have my receiver bound up. I'm using an 8-channel receiver, and I have 3 of the light plugs in channels 5, 6, and 7. So obviously you have throttle, aileron, elevator, rudder, and flaps, and then you have 3 extra ports on an 8-channel RX, so then you can function all the lights that you need. But now once you have it bound up, you'll have your servo centered by that point, and here's where you tighten everything down. So obviously you could tighten down your flap and your aileron hinges. And now when it comes to the slats, remember, the way the flaps work on this model, you know, they're controlling the slats at the same time. So if you're seeing this right now, you know, they work in unison. So in essence, 100% max deflection will be fully closed, both slats and flaps. And then a center is going to be probably your mid flap, and then, you know, the opposite full deflection is going to be fully open slats and fully open flaps. So you can see how that works. Again, attaching this is why the grub screw helps on that servo arm, because I left that grub screw loose so that I can easily attach the 2 metal rods to the slat itself, and then I could come in and just tighten down that grub screw to make sure my slats are going to be fully down at the start. So just, you know, take your time when you do that to make sure you get it right, and it should be looking like this. That would be full, half, and then close. And for some of you, you may not want the slats. You know, you may find that experience to be something. Again, it was the first time I ever flew a plane with slats, so it's different. You know, if you don't want those, then you could easily take that rod out of the grub screw and then just tape down the whole mechanism, and you could have your slats like this and just fly it like, you know, a standard high wing cub, if you will. So now again, while she's all built here, I just want to show you guys, these are all your extra screws. So if you're finding that you have a lot of extra screws, you will in this model. They give you pretty much one extra of almost every, some places 2 extras in case you lose one. So it's pretty good. You get an extra wing screw, an extra tire nut, all that stuff. Also, you get, remember, your second prop is here. The bigger one, the 16x8, is going to be for 4S, and you'd be running that on something like a 5000 4S if you're going to fly it that way. But again, the ESC inside comes with an EC5 connection, which tends to be more the 6S packs, because I think 6X is where this baby shines the brightest. So, you know, I have a 6S 6000 6S that I've been flying. I like all that weight up front, and I've been going by the book CG, which is 57 millimeters from the leading edge of the wing backwards. So when you do that measure, it's 57, and that's going to get you just right as far as the CG goes. And I'll show you my battery inside when I take the top off. You know, this is where I've been flying it. I have the battery basically all the way forward, but again, the CG by the book is a starting point, but you know, every pilot's going to alter that to suit their flying needs. And then also, since I'm plugging in the light channels into my RX, you can put them on switches. So like I have the nav lights and the fuse lights just on my gear switch. So they'll turn on and off at my leisure. If you need them or don't want them on, that's completely up to you. And I definitely love that feature. As you saw in some of the flying videos as well, I stuck a GoPro on the other one that I had, you know, on a pan and tilt, and those windows, man, you can see right out them through a camera. They look great when you're flying around. Tons of space for the FPV capability. But everything else, man, she's a big, awesome electric super scale STOL that is not for a beginner by any means. This was my first experience with a STOL aircraft. I've flown a lot of high wing cubs like this, and I always enjoy them, but the first time I ever flew one with slats, and it's a different feel. When I will say on your maidens, I would recommend take it up. Don't worry about the flats and slats. Just, you know, trim everything out. Make sure she flies straight and true, and, you know, give yourself a regular landing. And then on your next successive flights, take it up high, open the slats and the flaps, and see how she plays. And I would say you're going to be, when you do have the full slats and the full flaps open, you're going to want more throttle. Don't, you know, she will stall out on you if you're too slow with all that braking on there. So just be careful with that when you are flying. So those are some tips there, guys. Our flight video is definitely going to be coming. I hope you enjoyed this, and remember, every detail is in the time code in the description of this video, so you can jump around throughout the video as you see fit. So guys, that'll do it for us here. If you have any questions, please head over to Hobby Squawk. We have, you know, our designers in that thread, our staff is in the thread, I'm in that thread. If you have any questions there, or leave a question in the comment section below, of course, I'll try my best to answer it there. But guys, that'll do it for me, Alex behind the camera. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time at Motion RC.